This is a freshly milled piece of beech, and this came down from our tree when our tree fell on the back of our house a few months ago. It's got some spalting in here, not much, but I think it should make a very nice bowl. It's about 2.5 inches thick, and the first thing that we need to do to turn this into a bowl is get it cut into a circle. So I'll just mark that out using the faceplate. I'm now just going to attach the faceplate onto the blank just with some screws. These aren't too long, but they will provide a good hold for the blank. Before I start, I just like to put a fresh grind on my bowl gouge, and I'm just going to do that on the bench grinder. The first thing is just to get this blank round, and the way I do this is by using a push cut. So this means that as the blank is spinning, I am taking this side and I'm just pushing into the blank very slowly. I'm going to only take small increments off the blank at a time, so I'm not putting too much pressure onto the lathe. If I do take a cut that is too big, the lathe will start to stall and slow down. So you'll just see me taking little cuts, and the lathe is currently set about 500 RPM, so it's not going very fast. So I'm not getting anywhere quickly here, but the aim of the game is just to go slow and steady, and just take decent cuts until we get this whole thing around. So the bowl is pretty much round now, and the next step before we can move on to shaping is to begin to flatten out this surface here. This is going to end up being the bottom of the bowl, so it makes sense that we're going to make it flat. So at the moment it's not quite flat, it's wiggling around a little bit. Obviously you won't be able to see as well as I can, because you're obviously seeing it through a camera. But what we're going to do, we're going to just turn around the tool rest like that, so it's facing into that way. Just make sure that it's not touching. So it's about 5mm from the wood. And all I'm going to do, I'm going to get the ball gouge and I'm just going to drag it slowly out from the middle to the outside, and that'll just begin to flatten it. This is usually quite a quick process because we don't actually have too much wood to remove. So the camera might struggle to show it, but what I've done is I've started to chamfer this edge here. So that means that there's just a bit of a diagonal there coming out from the centre and going out to there. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go from more like there and start to come out like that, and then I'll gradually make my way round doing more straight diagonals, and then I'll be able to use the round nose scraper and just shape in all of those diagonals, and I should get quite a nice curve. So that's just what I'm going to do now. So now I've got the final shape of the bowl pretty much established. I want to work on the foot, and the foot is where the bowl will sit, how it will sit on the table or on a shelf or whatever. And that is going to be this portion here. So what I like to do is I like to have an outside rim where the bowl will actually sit. That is where the gravity will be pushing it down. But then just hollow out this middle very slightly, just take away a couple of millimeters or something, so that centre bit won't actually be in connection with whatever the bowl is sitting on. And I think I'll just use the ball gouge just to hollow that out very slightly, and then we'll use the round nose scraper just to flatten out the bottom, take out any imperfections, and then we should be able to flip this round and get the rest of it hollowed out. is the outside of a bowl pretty much completed. I'm not entirely sure how long that took me, maybe about half an hour. And I'm really liking that grain on there. So now we need to flip this around. Don't take it off the lathe, make sure you leave it on the lathe. And what we're going to do, we're going to glue a block onto that side there. So I'm going to go and get the hot glue gun heated up and a little block cut for that, and then I'll get back to you. Right, let's get this block on to there. But before we do that, I should probably mention that while I was waiting for the hot glue gun to warm up, I did do a little bit of sanding. So I just sanded that at 100 grit, and I think I might take it a little bit further in a minute. But I think we should just get this glued on. So that will fit just over there, and there'll still be room for the screws from the faceplate to actually go into that in a minute. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to use a hot glue gun. You could actually use normal wood glue if you wanted, if you've got a while to let that to dry, and then just put it on. I'm just going to hold that in place for a minute just to make sure that it's on nice and flat. And just make sure that you turn off the hot glue gun as well. And then I'll just give this a quick wiggle just to make sure it seems solid, and that looks pretty good. Okay, so I've got the tailstock on, and all I'm going to do is I'm just going to turn on the lathe. And I'm just going to make a tiny little mark with the tailstock into that board. And then I'm going to turn it off. And now, as difficult it is to make out, there is a tiny little hole in there, which is exactly centered on there. So if we can get the not the tailstock, the faceplate to go right over that bowl is going to be perfectly centered. So let's take this off and let's spin it round. So there is a little mark that the tailstock made, and I'm just going to put over the faceplate, and I know you can't see that, but that little indentation that it made is right in the centre of this hole here. So now I'm just going to get the drill and drill a couple of holes for screws just in there. Okay, so I've just got it remounted, and let's turn it on. And that looks pretty centered, and there's a little bit of wiggling around which sort of indicates that it's not entirely centered, but without a chuck, that's pretty much good enough for me. The first thing we're going to do is just flatten out this face here, and similar to before, we're just going to use the bowl gouge on a little push cut just going in. What I'm going to do though is I'm just going to bring up the tailstock first and just push that into there, which means that I've just got an extra bit of security on there for now. Obviously that won't be able to stay on there for long when I start hollowing it out, but for now that will just give me an extra little bit of security. So the way we hollow a bowl is a little bit different to a lot of things in wood turning, unless you've done some hollow forms with a spindle gouge or a scraper or something. So what we have to do is you have to start the gouge all the way over there. You'll notice that that's pretty much touching my other turning tools over there, and you've just got to swing it out that way. Just as far as you can, just swing it and push it in. Yeah, and that's about it. At the start, you can potentially start from over here with the handle down, start to push in a little bit, but as you get deeper and deeper and deeper, you really want to be going round there like that. My bandsaw is just over there, which means that it's a bit awkward for me to swing stuff around. So I'm just going to push that to the side for a minute, and then I'll be able to start on this. And now I'm just going to use the round nose scraper just to finish off that curve inside there. I know you can't really see it, but I can't really get the camera around to a good angle. And then yeah, I'll just finish that off nicely. Because this is a bit wet, sanding it is going to be a little bit awkward, so I'm going to try and do as much as possible with the scraper, but then I will go on and sand it a little bit. And yeah, then we'll be pretty much finished. And there we have it, our bowl is pretty much finished. Actually, I've just noticed there's a tiny bit of something there that I'm going to sort out, and then I'll, yeah, and then the bowl will be done. I'm just going to use a large chisel just to try and get in there and just try and pop it all off, because it's obviously stuck on there. And we got some little bits stuck on, but I'll just go and cut those off quickly. Can I also apologise because the light is really bad. Yeah, I've got a window just there, if you can't tell, although I'm sure you can. Yeah, so I do apologise if the lighting has been a bit dodgy in today's video. So the bowl is all finished now. Thank you so much for joining me and watching my process for making a bowl. I know at some points this video maybe sounded more like an informative video, but my intention more was to sort of show you the way that I go about it. No turner is the same, they don't have the same methods all of the time, so this was just my way of showing you how to turn a bowl. I'm just going to stress that this bowl was wet turned. It's not really wet because it did have a few months to dry out, but it's certainly not bone dry like a normal blank that you would expect. So I will expect this to move and change and possibly crack in a couple of places, but at least now it does look very cool. We've got some awesome spalting going on there. It doesn't go the whole way through, which is actually quite interesting, so clearly just caught it right on the edge, but I think it does leave a very interesting look. At some point I will put a finish on this, but for now, because it is still damp, that wouldn't really be a particularly good idea, because I'm just going to assume that it would soak in really quickly because the bowl is still wet and it wouldn't really dry properly. But anyway, thank you so much for watching today's video. I know it's been so long since I've been on here, and I've only made a video because I've got plenty of time because I'm isolating with COVID at the moment. But yeah, just thanks for watching me, and I'll see you on my next video, whenever that will be. Okay, goodbye.